Okay, I think we should just start. It's almost 5, and they can watch it later if they miss it. Okay, so before we start our book launch, I would like to acknowledge that today's event is taking place on the traditional territories of the Coast Salish people of the Katsi, Kwantlen, Semiahmoo, Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, whose land we live and work on. And we are very grateful for that. And today, at our very first virtual live streamed Instagram, we have Canadian art historian Anne Kristensian with us today. Anne is a mother of 3 daughters and lives with her husband in White Rock, British Columbia. She is also a breast cancer survivor, and we are here today to celebrate the launch of her book, Angel in the Marble, which touches on her journey. So hello, Anne.
Hello,
Welcome.
hello everyone.
This is her book.
Yeah,
I have to admit, and when I first got your book, I was hesitant to open it just because I knew about the topic, and I was like, I don't know if I want to know about it. But then the minute I opened the first page, I just started to laugh. It's so funny, such a funny book. And having said that, what is the message of your book, and who is it for?
wow, that's a good question, Uli. I mean, obviously, it's for people going through breast cancer, and it's meant as I talked this over with my publisher, but it's sort of like that friend on your bedside table who's been through it before. So just somebody who knows what you're going through. And also, the more I think about it and the more feedback I get from people, it's about resilience, and it's about living your life from a perspective of positivity and possibility. So I think it's for many people. It's also,
Yes.
I think, useful for people who have loved ones who are going through cancer. And oftentimes people find it hard to open up about what they're experiencing. And I've had people say to me, to thank me for letting them understand what their loved one is going through. And it's just such a gamut of emotions.
Right. I actually Googled the statistics about breast cancer in Canada. October is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and it says that it is the most common cancer among Canadian women, and it is the second leading cause of death from cancer in Canadian women. Breast cancer can also occur in men. That's something I didn't know,
Yeah.
but not as common as it is with women. However, the chances of survival are 88% within the first 5 years, which is, I think, pretty high. I'm not a doctor, but it looks promising, right? And it is estimated that 1 in 8 Canadian women will get a diagnosis of breast cancer in their life, which is very scary, I think. And you were one of them. How did the process of writing Angel in the Marble help you navigate through your illness and through the uncertainty of your illness?
Very good question. Well, it started out as a blog, and I just decided to write down what I was experiencing. And when you're faced with something that large, you sort of, your priorities become very laser focused, and that meaning that I just knew I was trying to survive. And so that's what helped me. And then it helped me to really open up. I didn't care. I didn't care if I was swearing in front of my children. It was fine. And so it really helped me to dig deep and feel what I was experiencing, and also see the humor in so many situations, the absurdity of dealing with some medical situations and other things. And I really found, you know, certain elements kind of bizarrely funny. And so that helped a lot too, the humor, seeing the humor in it.
And you mentioned you prioritized things. So the title of your book is a reference to Michelangelo's multi-layered quote. And Michelangelo, he was a painter, a Renaissance painter, but he also was a famous sculptor. And he knew very well how and when to add and when to take away. And I think at the last pages of your book, you do mention this blog, and I will ask you to read that. But I want to know, through your illness, how did you realize what to prioritize in your life, just like Michelangelo did with his sculptures?
Well, it became pretty crystal clear that family was a priority. And I realized early on that this was an opportunity to show my daughters how to deal with adversity in life. And so that, and then the prioritizing family and friends. I mean, it was incredible how people just rose up and were there for me, and really nothing else mattered. You know, nothing else mattered. That you realize what's important in life.
And aside from your family and your friends, what else helped you and gave you strength to go through these hard times?
Meditation. I tell you, it's life-changing. I was the type that, you know, I could not stop my brain from moving around, and just by actually practicing meditation, making it a daily practice. In fact, in some of the darkest days, I was meditating for 3-4 hours just to calm my brain, and also to focus on, you know, healing my body. So yeah, I would say that was a huge thing for me, and I recommend anyone.
Yes, did meditation. I remember there was a scene, you do mention meditation, but then you say that it didn't work and you didn't want to just meditate, and you were upset, and I had to laugh so hard. And having said that, would you like to read a passage of your book? And before you do, just want to welcome everyone who just joined. So hi, everyone. This is a book launch of Anne Kristensen's newly launched book, Angel in the Marble. And we are talking about her journey through breast cancer, how, you know, she in the process of writing, learned to prioritize, and her family and friends helped her through the journey. So yes, okay.
Okay, well, thanks, Uli. I just want to give a little context to what I'm going to read. And it's one of my favorite parts of the book. It's a chapter, I won't read the whole chapter, but it's called Metamorphosis. And it deals with losing my hair. And what's really, I found so fascinating was that, you know, losing my hair was almost as terrifying as the cancer itself. I lost my hair, all of it, through chemotherapy. And it just made me reflect very much on what our culture holds as important. And that means the way in which women look, the fact that they are not supposed to age, they become less valuable through aging, and also through illness. The female body being ill is something that is looked down upon in our culture. So I started out the chapter with just an excerpt from W.B. Yeats, William Butler Yeats, the Irish poet, his poem to a friend of his great-granddaughter. And it deals with really what value women have. And it said, "Only God, my dear, could love you for yourself alone and not your yellow hair." So that's what hair means in our culture. So I go through the chapter sort of describing how my process of hair loss happened, what I felt about it. And it's pretty funny too. I talk about rocking the Prince William, and and the Dr. Phil minus the mustache, and I ended up with sort of a pig pen looking and like from Charlie Brown. But this was very profound for me because my husband, Grant, has been phenomenal as a support through this whole journey. And so I say it was only the second time I cried through the whole process. The first was when I was initially diagnosed and worried what it would be like if my kids lost their mother. This time, I just imploded. I mean, it was my hair. It was gone. What if Yates was right? Only the thing is, it wasn't entirely gone. There are parts of it that stick around. So my husband, Grant, came in and held me and told me I was beautiful. He asked me if it was time. I nodded yes. He appeared in a few moments with some scissors and an electric razor that he had tucked away for the occasion. He disappeared again and came back with a chilled bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. Tonight we celebrate, he said, and welcome the new you. We drank the champagne, we laughed, we shared stories and reminisced. We went into the bathroom and he gently placed a towel around my shoulders and began to shave. The champagne had relaxed me and I was ready. I remembered something I had learned once. Every 7 years we lose our hair. In fact, every 7 years, all of the cells in our body regenerate and are completely renewed. I was saying goodbye all at once to the past 7 years and bringing a clean slate to be written on in the next 7. There were wonderful memories, engagements, weddings, family trips, and gatherings, but there were many tragic, stressful, upsetting times too. The death of a dear friend, the passing of a beautiful nephew, and even the loss of a beloved cat. All took its toll. Children moving far away, upheaval at work, moving 3 houses, life. It all becomes part of us on a cellular level, and all of the pain and all of the joy is there in our hair. As my husband finished my buzz cut, I felt my head. For all the sudden cliches I had become, Mr. Clean, Brittany, you name it, I was emerging as so much more. The scalp pain was gone. My scalp felt downy, soft, and warm, like the heads of my babies when I held them in my arms so many years ago. Vulnerable, sweet, perfect. It occurred to me that my mother must have held my head in the same way 60 years ago and felt those same feelings. It was like more than 7 years lay on the floor. It felt more like a metamorphosis where base matter is transformed into something of beauty and strength. Like Phoenix rising from the ashes. Instead of Yates, a new theme began to play in my mind. India Aries words resonated. I am not my hair. I am not this skin. I am a soul that lives within. And with that, having shed her cocoon, the butterfly spread her wings.
So beautiful.
Thank
So
you.
beautiful. And one can really see your references to art history. You are an art historian, and art historians deal a lot with beauty. And in your book, you mention that women's beauty standards have always been set by men for men. And having said that, what do you think the beauty industry can do to support breast cancer patients through their journey of recovery? And also, what can that industry do to empower not just women, but anyone to embrace the diversity of, race and size and form that we all have? What would you tell that industry?
Well, I already see it beginning to happen with certain companies featuring figures who have had mastectomies and not had reconstruction as models. And the same thing, we're beginning to see diversity and inclusiveness in advertising because, again, it comes down to the buck. If we're not supporting elements of the industry that are projecting an image that we see as too idealized, as not realistic, then they'll change their tune. And we saw it with quite a while ago, but with Dove beauty soap, when they began to enlist models of different sizes and different shapes. And so I think that's the thing, is just that we as the consumer need to push these companies to embrace diversity. And that goes for different abilities, physical, cognitive challenges, and also age.
I really like how in your book you are so bold with addressing taboo topics such as menopause, women and aging, things that we don't feel, typically comfortable talking about because they are uncomfortable, not pretty. And you emphasize in your book that women are way more than just their looks. They are what they know, what they do, or how they think. What would happen if every woman in this world would understand and really internalize these intangible qualities that we all have, instead of just trying to superficially fit in a box that is given to us by media?
Well, isn't that a good question? I mean, wouldn't it be wonderful? And I believe it's up to women to empower other women. And also, I teach women art and society. And so it's really about how women have been imaged in art and media throughout, but also how women have been treated, and women artists in particular. And so I think as women need to educate, need to reinforce for other women, young women, old women, that they are enough. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You do mention a lot of women. What about men? Because is your book? I don't think it's a feminist book. I think it's just generally about empowerment and finding a deeper meaning in a purpose in our being. So it can pertain to men as well as females, right?
100%.
Yes.
I also teach a gender studies course where one of the themes that we deal with is images of masculinity, because those are just as contrived in our culture as images of femininity, right? I mean, you think of the classic fireman's calendar, or
Oh my God, I love firemen.
right?
Sorry.
And and then there's the whole kind of packaging of toxic masculinity and that sort of thing. So I think we need to have conversations about this, and I think it's become, with social media, so much more profound in terms of the way in which these tropes and stereotypes are projected and reinforced. I think it would be really hard to be young right now and to really wade through all that. So yeah, I think the book is about empowerment, whether you're hit with a disease, whether you are male or female, but you are responsible for your destiny.
Totally, yes. And that also reminds me of another thing that I noticed. So your book does talk about your journey through breast cancer, but one very dominant theme is fear of loss. You mentioned in the passage that you read for us, you didn't want to lose your hair, which is so bizarre, right? Like, we wake up every morning, we brush our hair, don't really think much of it, out the door, but only when we actually lose our hair, we understand how much it is part of our identity. And then there is also, with breast cancer, it's not the type of cancer that is unnoticed. A woman's breasts, it's part of her identity, right? When you lose your breasts, that is, you lose part of your identity. And with COVID, we all, especially here, it felt like we were all in a state of collective grief that was invoked through the fear, or whether it is real fear or just imagined fear, but it was there. fear of losing our jobs, fear of losing our lives, our loved ones. And coincidentally, with Breast Cancer Awareness Month, October is also in Canada Mental Health Awareness Month. And what did this experience you went through, which is very real, very tangible, of the fear of, you were probably scared of dying, right? You mentioned in your book all the things you wanted to do, and now you realize you may not, be able to do. What did this experience teach you about life and how short it is or can be?
Exactly that. You have to grab the brass ring. Don't wait. That's also a product of my family history. My father died very young at 58, and my mother got MS, and they never got to enjoy a retirement or anything like that. And I think we saw it with COVID, people putting things off, and then COVID hits, and you just have to grab the bull by the horns and experience life, because nothing is promised. Tomorrow isn't promised to any of us. And so just jump in there and enjoy it.
That is a very Buddhist reference, to live in the now, what you just mentioned. Did you become Buddhist through your journey? Or religious?
Practically. I absolutely adore Pema Chodron, and who became a Buddhist monk after she went through a brutal divorce. And I love the teachings of the Buddhist spirituality.
Okay. I'm curious, did you go to Machu Picchu?
No,
did you get
yet?
No, okay. Is that on your bucket list?
Yeah, but I did do the hike at Cinque Terre.
Okay.
That's in the book too.
Nice. And I also was intrigued by the last 1.5 pages of your book, the reference to Michelangelo's carving of David. Would you like to elaborate on that a little bit more, the stone you mentioned or the rock?
Sure. Well, I think everybody's familiar with Michelangelo's David, and you're right. He was a painter, but he really preferred to see himself as a sculptor. He was kind of forced to paint by the Pope, but his thing was sculpting. And two things about that that really sort of touched me about Michelangelo is that he truly believed that God had put a form within a stone, and that it was simply the artist's task to take the stone away and reveal that divinely existing form. And so as I was being sort of carved up and chiseled and so on, both physically and emotionally, I began to feel that I was like, a kind of a sculpture that was like being revealed by an artist like Michelangelo, or actually by myself, where I was retrieving my identity, my true identity. And that's why I chose the title, The Angel in the Marble, because Michelangelo said, I saw the angel in the marble and carved until I set it free. So that's one really powerful illusion that motivated me. And then in the final chapter, I talk about Michelangelo's David, which was carved out of a big chunk of marble that had been hanging around Florence for decades. Michelangelo was very particular about his marble. He would go up to the quarry in Carrara, and he would actually build roads in to find that perfect piece of marble. But he was commissioned by the city of Florence to create this work of David, the biblical hero who killed the giant Goliath. And he had to use this piece of marble. Now, not only was it oddly shaped, it was very narrow and very tall, so it was very compressed. But it had a hole in it, and the previous sculptor had started chiseling away, and it had a big hole in it. So in order to create this work, Michelangelo had to figure out how could he make something look incredibly powerful but compacted into this small space. I mean, it's not really a small space, but it's a compact space. And so he did. He found basically the angel within the marble. He found that divine form and created a work of art that is so psychologically impactful. It's not the David who's throwing the stone with the slingshot at the Goliath. It's David's piercing gaze across the piazza that challenges the giant Goliath. And so he uses psychology to create this really profound interchange between David and the giant.
Mm-hmm. What a beautiful story behind the sculpture. Yeah, it's David and Goliath. That's true. Yeah, you do mention Goliath, and I think you say you feel like Goliath in your book somewhere.
Yeah, I feel like no, I feel like David, and I felt sort of like Goliath was the cancer experience, and I
Right.
stared it down.
Yeah, it can be confronted and defeated, you said. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's true. So see, the hole that you mentioned in the Carrera marble, so the Chinese garden in Vancouver, I don't know if you had a chance to go there. They have these rocks that have the holes in it. And these holes are actually in the Ming Dynasty, which do coincide with our Western early Renaissance time,
Oh,
the Ming Dynasty. They were actually considered the highest standard of sculptures, and they were formed by being put intentionally thrown into a lake called Lake Tai that had acidic water, and these rocks would stay in that water for decades and decades until there is cavity put in, so that these holes were formed in. And the more randomly looking holes these rocks had, the higher or more aesthetically pleasing and more valuable they would be, and the scholars of these gardens would buy them and put them as pieces of decoration in their gardens. And I just thought, when I read that passage about the hole, that was actually seen as an obstacle, and Michelangelo was able to work around it. And then it made me think of those Thai rocks and how our beauty standards are dependent on cultures, different, how different cultures see beauty so differently. But is there a common denominator, would you say, something not superficial about beauty? What is it that we can all appreciate about the concept of beauty? You as an art historian must deal a lot with that.
That is a very I could go on for quite a while about this. I mean, I think you hit it on the head, Uli, where beauty is kind of a constructed concept within each culture, and it varies. And that's why I don't think there is a single standard of beauty. That's where we need to move away from this idea that there is a kind of a universal concept of beauty, because it changes. And because it is mutable, it's changeable. We have to be really aware of that we're not sort of holding people or whatever up to these standards that are really constructed by different elements in a culture. So I think it's just being really informed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. Being informed is important. Going back to the book that you wrote, you do mention when you were diagnosed, and then there was you knew you would have your breast amputated, if I may say, um, and you were looking for the perfect surgeon. I found that passage so intriguing, that it was so important for you to find the right surgeon. Why is that? And what would you recommend someone who is going through what you went through to pay attention to?
Well, this is a really good question. Again, and oftentimes we're intimidated by the medical environment and are sort of likely to just accept whatever a doctor will say. And initially, my GP had uh, uh, given me a reference to a clinic that had several doctors, but with one in mind that she wanted me to do. She said she was the best, but instead they had me with this guy who was apparently a fantastic surgeon, but his specialty was colons. And in fact, he had said to me that I could just get away with a lumpectomy. So, in other words, just a small uh, uh, intrusion into the breast. But in fact, when I rejected him and I asked for the surgeon that had been suggested to me, and she said, no, that was the wrong advice. The whole breast had to go because it was triple negative breast cancer. And there's no drug treatment for that. All you can do is surgery and chemotherapy and radiation. So if you don't get it all, if the margins aren't big enough, you're in big trouble. It's got a much lower survival rate than the other breast cancers. So I say my advice is be very proactive. Get a couple of opinions and don't be afraid to ask questions.
Is there when you go through this procedure of having your breast removed, is there the recovery and the plastic surgery, is it covered by the healthcare system in Canada,
Yes,
and to what extent is it covered?
it's fantastic. BC Medical, and this has not always been the case. So a lot of women didn't get reconstruction surgery, 20 years ago. But yeah, reconstruction is completely covered. And it can take a long time because it can go in different stages and so on. So, and the plastic surgeons are fantastic. In fact, I think my high school girlfriends are kind of jealous of the way I look now.
And if you put yourself in your younger you, the younger version of yourself who didn't know what is coming, and then now the wise and who went through a lot in her life, what would you, if you had a dialogue, and in your book you mentioned dialogue is important. If you had a dialogue with your younger yourself, what would you tell yourself? What would you say, where to put the focus of life?
Mm. Not on your looks, because looks fade or you lose them somehow. And I try and reinforce this with my girls too, is, focus on giving back to the world and being successful in your own right, not dependent. Always be independent, and yeah, don't get caught in that sort of uh, uh, realm of your value being tied up with what others think of you. So establish your own confidence, your own value deep within yourself at an early age and build on it.
Is that what your journey has taught you?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's been a huge part of it. And to be, you know, to be proactive. I was not as sort of strong and forceful in my youth. Now I ask for what I want.
Okay, that's good to know. How did you? It's a very funny book. It's really surprisingly funny. It's a bit like my favorite author is Marianne Keyes, and it did remind me of this chick genre,
Oh,
because
okay.
you have this talent of packaging a dark, deep, and actually heavy topic into a light breeze, which is, I believe, a big talent. And a skill. How were you always a humorful person, or did you decide humor is going to get you through this?
Both. I've always had a pretty wicked sense of humor, and my friends have wicked senses of humor, and we uh, that's one of the things that drew me to my first really great set of friends, my high school friends, and we're still friends today, where we just yeah, we looked at life with a lot of humor. And especially as you go through it, you get knocked around a bit, humor helps you through for sure. Yeah.
Yes, it does. Yeah. Is your husband
And
also funny like you?
he appreciates my terrific humor. Yeah, he's pretty funny too, in a dry sort of way.
Good. And then I also think you also learned a lot about areas you probably would not have had encounters with, like you mentioned, the drag queens when you were looking, shopping for. I thought that is funny.
They're my
What did this open your horizon even more?
I've always loved drag queens, I have to say. And I knew that if I was in a wig shop that catered to drag queens, and I mean like real drag queens, then I was getting a fantastic product. And so that's what drew me there. Yeah. So did it open my horizons? Yeah, I'd never worn a wig before, so that was pretty bizarre. But yeah, I think so. I think it definitely does. And I'd never really experienced much in the medical environment other than giving birth. So that was quite fascinating to see all the different aspects of, people going through chemotherapy and people being treated with radiation and surgeries and all kinds of things. And again, we've talked about it a lot during COVID, but I just I'm so grateful to our healthcare workers. We're so lucky to have them and our healthcare system. As maybe imperfect as it is, I felt like never felt any worry uh, about how I was being treated or anything like that. It was really professional and great.
And that touches on one of the questions I had. So you mentioned our superb healthcare system, and we are privileged to live in a part of the world, not just the healthcare, but also as women, we have all rights and we have a voice. And yes, there is, the beauty standards, but in most parts of the world, women aren't that privileged. I actually don't know how women, are treated if they have any, deadly diseases or diseases like cancer. What is it that we should appreciate living in this privilege as women in the Western society, and what can we do with that privilege?
Well, yeah, I really think we are so fortunate. I mean, you can see it right now with COVID, all of the countries that don't have vaccines. And here we are, we have it. And as women, it started with the suffrage movement, but the 1960s, we did make a lot of headway. And then with Me Too, we keep making headway in terms of women's rights. I still think there's work to be done, glass ceilings and so on, but we are getting there. And I think, and again, we need to also include men's rights and their identity in terms of how we grow and develop. Um, and I think too, if you look at the situation in Afghanistan now, to really lend a hand to women throughout the world who are not so fortunate as us, and to educate our daughters about helping them and our sons.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I agree with you. It's not just women, it's all, it's everyone. We should all work together. That's a
Yeah.
good point. And I look at your book, there are like a couple of pages for notes. What is this for?
Well, one thing I found when I was going through treatment is you sitting in chemotherapy, or you're sitting, in bed or something, and something comes to your mind that you might want to ask the doctor, or you might want to write a poem. It's not always something you just want to bang out on your phone. You might want to draw a picture. I just found you might want to write a blog, which in turn would help you write a book. So I just found that having a single place, like a journal of sorts, to write down whatever you needed to write down. And they always give you pamphlets and stuff, so you can shove them into there too. It would be nice to have it all in a compact place. And I could have imagined having this book in chemotherapy as I sat there for an hour or so getting my treatment, and being able to use the book in the note forms.
It's amazing how you go through this, and as you go through this in your head, you are like, okay, the next chemotherapist person could benefit from a funny book about breast cancer that has pages of notes that they can write. I think that's just so genius of you. And then there is also this QR code for resources on breast cancer, right? Can you elaborate on that?
That takes you directly to my website, which has all kinds of blog points on dealing with chemotherapy, and recipes for smoothies, and things like that. So for people who are experiencing cancer, or who are helping, loved ones, it gives you some options of products that you can get. And I'm totally not soliciting anything from these companies, but I'm just literally giving you what I found really useful, different kinds of mouthwashes and stuff like that.
Is there a subsidy for when you lose your eyelashes and your eyebrows, so you need extra makeup or probably special makeup, and your wigs that you had to buy? Is this subsidized, or do you have to purchase it out of pocket?
It depends on your medical coverage. If you have extended care, they will often cover part of it. Also, many of the breast clinics, hospitals like Surrey Memorial, they like cancer patients will donate their wigs, and so that's another way that you can get helped out. But it is tough. You would think that it would be covered, but not necessarily. Only if you've got extended.
Or maybe
Coverage.
there is non-profit that support cancer
There's a
patients.
fantastic group, and they're across Canada, and they're called Look Better, Feel Good. And they hold, I don't know what they're doing during COVID, but they hold workshops. And I went to one where I was given like a complete makeover kind of thing. And you end up getting like $400 worth of makeup, which you can, and that's like, just, it's so great. And they're so fun and kind, and there's a real camaraderie. So I really recommend that for anybody. And you can, at least when COVID wasn't on, you could I brought a friend to one of those workshops, and it really made her feel better too. So yeah,
what are they called?
Look Good, Feel Better.
Look
And
good,
it's on my website,
look
actually.
better. Oh, you have it on your, okay, great. Speaking of your website, so everyone, you can purchase Anne's book. Go to angelinthemarble.ca, and that's where you can purchase her book, find all the lovely resources that Anne just mentioned. And there is also a book club I saw. So it's like a world in itself for not just cancer patients, but anyone who is interested, or supporters, or people who just want to laugh. And yes, I really appreciate this book. This is a perfect COVID survival book, and just look at the bright side of life and the meaning of beauty. What does it mean? And everyone is beautiful. I try to stop being so critical. After I read your book, I'm like, I'm beautiful. Everything is good.
Good for you.
So it's a very encouraging book to appreciate what you have and who you are. I like that. So thank you for this. Thank you. Is there going to be a sequel or another book that you are going to enrich our lives with?
Another book I'm cooking up, but yeah, I'll let you know when that one's in the works, or when it's on its way out. Yeah, I'm really enjoying writing, and I think I have a message for people, so I'm
yes,
interested
you do.
in pursuing it.
Yes, absolutely. Is there going to be an audiobook version of this?
There is, and it's on Amazon right now.
Oh, there's an audiobook of Angel in the Marble. This is excellent. I'm gonna check it out.
Not an audio, it's an ebook, like a Kindle.
Oh yes, okay.
Yeah, audiobook is something I should look into for sure.
Yes, definitely. And look into it. Malcolm Gladwell, he's like a pro. So contact Gladwell and ask him how he does it, because I think your book would be a perfect audiobook. Like when we are walking around, we can just listen to it, or when we are, need to relax. I really think this book would be perfect. And you have a nice voice. You could even also narrate your audiobook yourself. So look into, or ask your husband Grant. Maybe he likes to help you out.
He's got a beautiful voice, but yeah, it would sound weird if he was talking about it, though, I think.
Yes, no, that's right. Okay, so we have another like 10 15 minutes. Is there any questions from the audience in the chat? I see there is some substantial number of people who joined us. Okay. Is there anything else, Anne, you would like to add to our conversation about your book, or how you came up with writing it, or how the experience was for you?
It was very cathartic, and I really urge people to journal when they're going through things, whether you actually make a blog out of it or not. But journaling is really useful, because what I found was that when I had sort of put this together as a book, I realized that I'd left out a whole bunch of stuff, and mostly it was things associated with the surgeries, which is kind of weird because I had 5 surgeries. You'd think that would be foremost in my mind, but I realized that what I was doing was, as I was going through the process, was just kind of trying to avoid it. I didn't want to go there. So the journaling and subsequently the writing of the book helped me to process what I'd gone through. So that's something I really, really recommend people to do when they're going through anything, is to write about it.
Did you, when you were journaling just for yourself, it's different, like when we write in our diary, we might be more open than if we know this is going to have an audience. Was your journaling maybe darker than your subsequent book?
No, I don't think so. I think it was, I worked through, you know, what was important in life through my journaling, and and it felt good to write kind of beautiful, positive things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's good to know. I really think the humor is good medicine. I think there's a German saying, humor is the best medicine. Maybe there is some. Did your doctors give you advice about not just, you know, chemotherapy or what you eat or exercise? Did they give you advice about your mental health? Because our mental health, and it goes both ways, right? Like our physical health affects our mental health and vice versa. Did they tell you anything about mental health importance?
Yeah, I actually I asked my oncologist point blank. I said, "Are outcomes actually better if you are in a more positive headspace?" And she said, "Undoubtedly." So there is something to this mind over matter thing. I mean, you know, not in really extreme cases necessarily, but I don't know. You know, it's worth it just to work on your mental health. And that's the other thing that's really great about our healthcare system. At the cancer clinic that I went to, they supplied free of charge counseling and therapy and things like that. So yeah, they're very much treating the whole person.
It was included in your healthcare package. That's important, right? How is life post 5 surgeries, post Dr. McDreamy, and all these treatments that you had to undergo to survive? How are you enjoying, or how are you living your life nowadays?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm almost 5 years cancer free, which is a huge marker.
Congratulations.
And just really, you know, trying to enjoy life. And I still go for walks on White Rock Beach and just marvel at how incredible nature is, and beautiful the water is, and when the sun's shining, how pretty it is on the water. And yeah, it's I try and savor every moment.
Good for you. You deserve it. And all right, it looks like nobody has questions. Everyone is totally mesmerized by our talk, and that's great. So everyone, go and purchase Angel in the Marble, the funniest book I read this year. And you can get it on Anne's website, titled angelinthemarble.ca. It also has lots of information and a book club and much more. And then she also mentioned Look Good, Feel Better for those who are undergoing chemotherapy and need affordable cosmetics and wigs. But you can find all this information.
$400 free. $400
worth of $400.
It's donated by, you know,
amazing. Yeah.
all these companies. Really great.
See, these are all the parts you don't think about, right? When you think of cancer, the first thing is death, the second thing is surgery, and then chemotherapy. But there's so much more to it, right? It's so multi-layered. Just like the title of your book, this quote that you mentioned, you know, it is so multi-layered and fascinating. And so, yeah, you are a true art historian, and I think it does transpire your wisdom about art history and the different epochs and beauty standards, and how you packaged it in your book so eloquently. So, yeah.
Thank you, Uli.
Well, thank you for this amazing book. So I would say then we will wrap things up here. Thank you for joining us and your beautiful words. You are very eloquent. I enjoyed listening to what you had to say. I hope you all enjoyed this talk and will visit her website.
Thanks for attending, everyone.
Okay. All right then. You have a good night.
You
Okay.
too. Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
Anne. Bye-bye.